Hi, I'm Dave Dinkle. In today's Deal Talk, we're going to look at real-life examples of doing deals with no money, no credit, and no risk, with net profits of $21,480.80 and $39,789.72. The first property, we're going to be looking first at the top half of the HUD. Purchase price is the A to B, top half of the HUD. Purchase price $68,000. Closing expenses only $1,850. On the HUD statement, left side's the buy side, right side is the seller side. Here's the bottom half of the HUD. You'll notice there's no earnest money deposit. So in this case, a student didn't put up an earnest money deposit. This is what's needed to close. Buyer on the left side. Bottom line after all expenses and credits, $66,018.50. No money in the deal, so he doesn't have the money to close. The seller's going to receive $65,142.89 because it was a free and clear property. Now let's go on to the second leg, or the B to C side. Sold the property for $92,000. On this leg, buyer here, seller, investor is on this side. Expenses from page 2. So here's the bottom half of the HUD. This is the money shot, so to speak, where the profit comes in. And there it is, $21,480.80. Now the end buyer was required to put up a $2,000 earnest money deposit. In case end buyer didn't close, he'd lose his $2,000 earnest money deposit, and the student investor who appeared to put up no money would have lost a $1,000 escrow deposit because he had that on hand with a closing agent. There's the transactional funding that coincidentally I put up, $67,517.69. No money in the deal for the student. Now in property number 2, there's actually 2 purchases that were combined to be sold to one end buyer. Both purchases are for raw land, and it was more than 10 individual parcels of raw land that were combined to be sold to one end buyer. Now in this case, we're using a closing disclosure instead of a HUD statement. CD. This is the top half of the CD. Purchase price on the first group of properties, $36,000. In the CDs, it's reversed. The seller's on the left side and the buyer's on the right side. For the sake of brevity, the $36,000 is the seller's credit, and it's also the debit to the buyer. He has to bring that money in. Now in this case, particular seller requested a $3,500 escrow deposit. There it is, including in what he has to bring in. Because he's bringing in $3,500, that will be a credit for him. You can see the credit on this side. This is the bottom half of the CD, first page. That's the funding that's needed, $39,737.51. But remember now, we have a second CD. So this is the top half of the second CD. $30,000 purchase price and a $3,100 earnest money deposit. So the sellers of both of these parcels required that the investor put up an earnest money deposit, approximately 10%. Let's go on to the bottom half. This is what's going to have to be brought in to close the transaction on the A to B leg. All of these expenses are included, reduced from the additional earnest money deposit that was put up. What we're going to do is go on to the B to C. Remember, these are 2 A to B CDs, or closing disclosures. What we're going to do next is go on to the third, or B to C closing disclosure. This is what it looks like. There's the sales price. Now, our seller is the investor in this case, so that's what he's going to receive as the gross sales price, but it's going to include both sets of those 2 properties. Now, what's interesting about this, I'm not sure how the closing agent did this, but he actually gave him a credit for $35 that he actually didn't have into the game at the time. It's okay. Doesn't matter. The bottom half of the CD, again, this is the B to C, bottom half of the CD. There's the transactional funding. If you look carefully, that transactional funding is this amount, and it's the combined amounts of the A to B's. The first A to B and the second A to B. There's the profit. Net profit, $39,789.72. So you got to look at a HUD statement as well as CD. An example of raw land, 2 purchases combined into selling it to one seller. No money transaction, no risk, no credit requirement. As I always say, why not you?